Welcome to the Building Bridges for Adults second workshop on Judaism. In our previous workshop on Judaism, we learned that Judaism is monotheistic, meaning that followers believe there is one God, covenantal, based on a covenant of faith and practice between its believers and God, varied in its expressions, and geared to raise awareness and gratitude for every aspect of life. We also recognize that Judaism, grounded in the Torah and its stories, birthed both Christianity and Islam, and has comprehensively influenced Western philosophy, culture, and thought. Judaism is both a nation and a faith. In ancient Jewish history and in Hebrew scripture, the two aspects of Judaism were intertwined. However, in our contemporary society, an individual who identifies as Jewish by heritage may or may not also consider themselves Jewish by religion. Further, there is great variety among Jews' religious beliefs and practices. A Jew might belong to a synagogue in Judaism's Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, or Reconstructionist movement, to a faith community which follows a particular leader, or to an informal faith community called a Havara, which means for worship without a rabbi in people's homes. Many people consider themselves cultural Jews. While they do not embrace Jewish theology or observe religious rituals, they may affirm faith-based principles and values associated with Judaism. They may honor some combination of ethnic and religious practices at home. The State of Israel is a political entity. Its identity is based on the nationhood of the Jewish people. However, in Israel, one will find as broad a spectrum of Jewish religious identity and beliefs as one sees among Jews in the United States. A central feature of Judaism is the historical fact of the diaspora, or scattering of the Jewish people across the globe. The homeland of the ancient Hebrews was the Kingdom of Judea in Jerusalem in the 6th century BCE. The heart of the kingdom was its temple. When the Babylonians conquered Judea, they destroyed the temple in Jerusalem and exiled most of the Jewish population. Many traveled and settled together, but Jews fanned out in every direction, and many have never been home, that is to Jerusalem, since. Over the next several hundred years, Jews regained Jerusalem and rebuilt the temple, again according to biblical instruction. However, in the year 70 CE, just after Passover, Jerusalem's city walls were breached by Titus Caesar, son of the Roman Emperor Vespasian. It took Roman soldiers another 3 weeks to defeat Jews defending their city, but they slaughtered everyone left in the city, and on the 9th day of the Jewish month of Av, the very same day the first temple had been destroyed, the Romans burned the second temple to the ground. The destruction of the second temple is one of the most important days in Jewish history. The Jews who escaped the massacre in Jerusalem fled for their lives, and the diaspora was renewed. Today, all Jews living outside the State of Israel are considered to be living in diaspora. Judaism has traditionally been matrilineal, meaning it follows the female bloodline. Someone born to a Jewish mother is considered Jewish. In biblical times, the community might not know a child's father, but would usually be sure of who a child's mother was. That is sometimes given as an explanation for the matrilineal tradition. The Torah indicates the matrilineal principle in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 3 through 4, which clearly implies that the ancient Hebrews believed a child's loyalty to Judaism followed the mother. Matrilineal descent was codified into Jewish law before the 2nd century CE and remained incontestable until the 20th century. In the U.S. and other Western countries, interfaith couples where the woman was not Jewish began bringing children into Judaism. These couples became dissatisfied that their biological children needed a conversion ceremony in order to be considered Jewish. In 1983, the Reform movement of Judaism, the most religiously liberal, agreed to accept children of Jewish fathers as Jews without a conversion ceremony if they had been raised as Jews. This is still absolutely rejected by conservative and Orthodox Jews, however, who accept anyone as Jewish with a conversion ceremony, but only automatically consider someone Jewish who had a Jewish birth mother. Most of the names we think of as from the Bible are from the Hebrew Bible, what Christians call the Old Testament, and they almost all are prophets, meaning human beings who have received truth directly from the source personified in the Bible as God. Jonah, Deborah, Samson, Miriam, David, Daniel, Moses, 55 in all, are people in Hebrew scripture considered prophets in the Judeo-Christian tradition. Unitarian Universalism also proudly follows a prophetic tradition. While we do not always call our religious sources prophets, and we do not always call our source of truth God, we honor the truth that human beings receive directly from their own experience and intuition, and honor the sacred calling to share what truth we come to know. One of the most important prophets of the Hebrew Bible is Moses. You may recall from our last workshop that the covenant God made with Abraham, described in the book of Genesis, is the reason Jews are called God's chosen people. According to the Hebrew Bible, direct communication between God and certain Jewish prophets continued over many generations. In both biblical and historical tradition, Moses was Judaism's most important prophet. The story of Moses and the Ten Commandments appears in the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verses 16 through 25. This is one biblical account of the Ten Commandments given to Moses on Mount Sinai by God. Another appears in the book of Deuteronomy. Moses stayed on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. God's instructions to Moses fill 12 chapters of the Hebrew Bible. At the end of the 40 days and 40 nights, in the last verse of chapter 31 of Exodus, the Bible states, "And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of speaking with him upon Mount Sinai, the 2 tables of the testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God." This is the traditional adaptation from Hebrew scripture, Exodus chapter 20, verses 2 through 14 of the Jewish Ten Commandments. I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol. You shall not make wrongful use of the name of the Lord your God. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Honor your father and mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet anything belonging to your neighbor. Abraham and Moses were prophets, and the Torah, where the stories of these men are found, also contains stories about many other prophets. Judaism recognizes 55 prophets from Hebrew scripture, 48 male and 7 female. The second Unitarian Universalist source is Words and Deeds of Prophetic Women and Men. When Unitarian Universalists refer to prophetic women and men, who are we talking about? When we say someone is prophetic, do we all mean that God is speaking directly through that person? One additional aspect of Judaism regards ethical eating and is known as the Laws of Kashrut. Most people have heard the word kosher. Colloquially, it can mean okay or appropriate, as in, no worries, your comment was kosher. However, its original meaning in Judaism is much more specific. The adjective kosher means fit and applies only to food. Of the 613 commandments in the Torah, 33 relate to food and are called the Laws of Kashrut. These laws describe things to do and not do in preparing and eating food. For example, check that the animal is healthy and whole before killing it for food, or don't eat meat and milk together. Scholars believe in a variety of reasons the laws of Kashrut appear in the Torah, and some of the most common are to make the food supply safer, to set the Jewish people apart, and to demonstrate the Jewish people's obedience to God. Rabbinical sources agree on certain points, however. According to the scriptures, God intended for humans to be vegetarian, but they ate animals anyway. Kashrut law recognizes that eating meat is a moral compromise. The laws provide a framework for doing so ethically by raising people's consciousness and seeking to spare animals unnecessary pain. Kashrut supports spiritual growth by encouraging awareness, thankfulness, and reverence for life. Food is part of our everyday life and is necessary for our survival. How do you think awareness of what you are eating might be an expression of your Unitarian Universalist faith? Thank you for joining us for our second workshop on Judaism. Check out our Facebook page and our discussion group for more information on this topic.